Hi, my name is Andrew. I'm working on my daughter's 2007 Chevy Cobalt. Unfortunately, she blew the motor, and I'm one of those lucky people who are going to attempt to pull the motor out. For time purposes, I've done all the dirty work over a few days. I don't have a shop. I don't even have a garage, so I'm doing this afield. I've taken everything loose that I can possibly find. I've watched other videos pertaining to this, and a lot of them say that there's absolutely no room, but everything I've seen was on manual transmissions. The sad part is that you have actually more room with a manual transmission clutch than you do with a torque converter. However, this is the lucky part for you people foolish enough to want to change a motor in a 2007, and it should be the same in a 2008. It's the exact same motor. The torque converter is already on the shaft of the transmission. Now, I was digging through a book and studying it, and there was a comment there about how to change the transmission with an automatic without having to worry about the room, and it spoke of turning the engine after removing the starter. With the starter removed, you can actually get to the bolts that hold on the torque converter. There's only 3 of them. Unfortunately, in my case, it threw a rod and seized the connecting rods in the other cylinder. So I had to drop the oil pan, unloosen all of the bolts going to all the connecting rods, including the main bolts, in order to loosen this up. And with a pry rod, pry bar, and hammer and chisel, finally got this thing to turn slowly. It took quite a bit of time, but all 3 bolts eventually came out. Now, it did suggest, this is important, to mark the first hole so the flywheel and the torque converter line up as they did before. Once you've unloosened all 3 bolts, you can, it's not necessary from what I've seen so far, but you can push the torque converter back, and this allows the engine to pull freely. There are a few hidden bolts in this engine, so really be careful. Make sure they're all done. Watched a video where a gentleman broke a motor mount simply because he forgot that it was attached. It was only 4 bolts. It came loose. That was the forward motor mount. Taking the engine loose releases the back motor mount, so it then slides freely. Literally, before I turn on the video, I finally have everything loose: the wiring harnesses, the fuel rail, water lines, everything, finally. And a little rocking back and forth, the engine is actually loose and ready to come out. I'm actually going to video me physically removing the engine for the first time. Hopefully it goes without catching or tearing anything. And once that's the case, I'm going to spin the engine around so you can look at the back part, and hopefully you can see how simple it is, because the flywheel really only requires 1.5 inches maybe of clearance. With the timing cover off, the alternators and such, that has given me almost 4 inches of clearance. In a manual transmission, it wouldn't be enough. You'd have to disconnect the transmission and slide it to the opposite side, and you barely have the room. But let's see what happens when I hoist this out. It's free. Let's cross our fingers and hope for the best. Always one bolt somewhere. It's always the wrong one. Always the last one. just because you think you've got everything taken loose doesn't mean it is. That's why you lift slowly and hope for the best. Fortunately, it's just something simple. A simple ground wire. Never assume you've gotten everything. That's how the gentleman broke the motor mount on the other one. All right. More clip. Let's look around. Alright, now, as you can see, all that's left is the flywheel. The torque converter is still in the transmission, lined up on the shaft. So all I have to do now is simply remove the flywheel, transfer it to my other engine and a few other components. This is actually the first time I've ever tried to do this in a 2.2. If you're ordering a motor for an 07, 06 and prior will not fit. 07 and 08 have some slight differences, but will fit. The only thing I ran into is then this is what they consider an F engine in the VIN ID. The other thing is the intake manifold apparently has some slight differences from engine to engine, from that engine. Luckily this one is identical to the one I have. Worst case scenario, you change one for the other. Now I'm going to set this one off to the side, transfer parts from one engine to the other, and if all goes well, I'll put it in this afternoon or tomorrow and simply reverse it from what I'm doing already. Hopefully this is of help to you that are trying to put in an engine. Probably should have scrapped the car, but it's not that old for us, so I have no choice but to fix it. Thank God I know something about mechanics, but I haven't done it for a living for 30 years. So I hope this has helped to somebody. Like I say, automatics are actually much better for getting the thing for the engine out. Manuals, from what I've seen in videos, are a pain. It can be done. It takes time. Just take your time. Make sure you get everything unbolted, and hope like anything your engine is not seized, because if it is, you may have a hell of a time getting it out with this. So good luck and keep them running.